Welcome back. This video is sort of unplanned, kind of like a lot of our videos are unplanned. We had some unforeseen and unplanned repairs and maintenance we have to do this week. A couple of weeks ago when we went for a cruise, we were having a little bit of trouble with our Holly red pump. And then the other day I was out driving the car and the Holly red pump decided to die. Rest in peace. Died at a very young age, about 6 months, 1,000 miles, a few hours of idle time. They just don't make them like they used to. When we got the car, it was already wired for an electric fuel pump. And it came with those little bitty tiny pusher pumps. And it burned out, so we put another one on there and it burned out. And then I decided I was going to get a Holly pump. We didn't need a blue pump, so we bought a Holly red pump. And it worked really well for a short little while. And now that fuel pump is dead. So the solution, of course, as with most things, is to go back in time to when things were worse and get parts from then. So we did just that. We are putting a manual fuel pump in the car. We should have known that nothing in 2023 would be as good as it was in 1982. I'll admit I was hesitant to go back to a manual fuel pump because they used to not have such a good reputation. I, of course, came into cars and hot rodding into the fuel injection age, and we always used electric pumps, so I was going to stick with an electric pump. And I was pretty surprised to find how much horsepower and what a lot of people are running with these manual fuel pumps. So we're going to give it a shot. We're also going from a deadhead system to a return style system. We're going to add a return line. We have a return style bypass fuel pressure regulator now. So we're going to be plumbing the car both ways. I've heard various things about if we'd have put a return line in instead of a deadhead system, that the Holly red pump may have lasted longer. But I hear varying opinions on that. Some people say their electric fuel pumps just die early no matter what. In the event you don't know what a deadhead system is versus a return system, a deadhead is where the fuel pump just sends fuel up to the carburetor and it just stops at the carburetor. The problem with this is that the pump keeps pushing at the same rate at all times, no matter what. And when the engine doesn't need a lot of fuel, that fuel is just going nowhere, building pressure in the system, and the pump is just pushing against itself. The fuel return system would be the pump sends the fuel up to the front of the car, the carburetor takes what it needs, and then the regulator sends the leftover gasoline back to the fuel tank. So then the fuel pump it has a lot easier life. Maybe that would have saved the Holly red pump. I don't know. For now, the Holly red pump is coming off. We need reliability, dependability. We're trying to prepare this car to be a daily driver, not a hot rod or a racer. So we're going to go with the manual fuel pump. I'm going to take the Holly red pump, and when my car gets ready, it's going to be more of a weekend and a racer. So if I can fix the Holly red pump somehow, I'm going to put on my car. My car is going to have a sumped fuel tank, and I'm going to start with a return fuel system. I'm not going to do a deadhead at all. So maybe it'll work. But for now, we get to drop the fuel tank, pull the fuel pump, take all the old garbage fuel line that was on here off. Then we get to strip the front of the engine. We have a new timing cover from LMR that accepts a manual fuel pump. We got to put a cam eccentric on the front of the cam to work the manual fuel pump. And we get to strip the front of the engine and the entire fuel system again and replumb the whole thing. Again, if you watched our videos, you know this is not the first time. Are you excited, buddy? We are not excited about this. We want to be driving the car right now, not sitting in it while it's dead, making a video about how we're going to try to fix it again. I take some of the blame for running the electric pump on the deadhead system. I thought it would last a little while longer. I was going to get a return style system and replumb the car sometime after New Year's. The fuel pump had different ideas. Thanks, Holly. Appreciate it, guys. So I guess we're going to get started on that. He doesn't know it yet, but he's going to do about 99% of this while I supervise. I'm going to tell him what to do and how to do it, and I'm going to sit around and work the camera and look pretty. I excel at that, don't I?
Just like usual, I'll do all the work. You'll take all the credit.
Correct. And if it doesn't work, if something goes wrong, you're going to take all the blame. Yes.
And then when it goes right, you get all the credit.
Not bad for a dumb teenager. So he kind of knows how things work around here. But, oh God, I don't want to do this, but we're going to get started. So come along and share our pain with us. Pardon the interjection, future Chris checking in here. So I just wanted to apologize for how long this video is going to be. I didn't edit anything out. Everything that I recorded is in here. All the mistakes, all the gaffes, all the screw-ups, all the stuff. Hopefully someone else will watch this and learn not to do this. It hasn't worked for me because I've done this multiple times throughout my life, and I still make the same mistakes. But I put all those mistakes in here for everyone to watch, laugh at, call me stupid, whatever you want. That's why the video is so long. Mistakes were made. You're going to see them. Feel free to laugh at me, leave a comment, make fun of me. Don't make fun of him. I'll get angry. But enjoy. All right. We are finally back at it. It's the next day. Chris is removing the battery from the car so we can get started. FedEx was kind enough to not deliver a bunch of our parts yesterday. The sorting center is a whole 20 minutes away. They just couldn't handle it. Went from 10 a.m. delivery to 2 p.m. to 4 to 6 to 8 to end of day to they just didn't deliver it. UPS was out here last night in a U-Haul delivering their stuff. Truck broke down. The guy unloaded all his stuff from a FedEx or a UPS truck to a U-Haul and was delivering stuff at 10 p.m. but FedEx could not handle it last night. So we're gonna get all this apart, get ready to put on our new stuff if it ever arrives. Using the last little bit of life the Holley red pump has left in it to drain the fuel tank so it's easier to pull. And that's it for the Holley red pump. It siphoned a couple of gallons of gas for us and then shut off. Oh, and it just magically kicked on out of nowhere again. What on earth? It's back alive. I just checked the wiring and it had power. But all right, well, as long as it's working, we're gonna try to siphon another couple of gallons of gas and then pull the gas tank. The red pump is out, and now that we're gonna pull the tank off the studs that I installed last time and get this thing out of here. Got the gas tank supported. Chris is pulling out the tank straps, and we're going to lower the tank. Tank is down. This would explain our venting problem. We crimped this tube right here. This is our gas vent, and we accidentally crimped it where it was not properly venting anymore. Dang. All right. And we can see exactly where it was crimping. We'll have to be more careful when we put it back in next time. Down here trying to get this old fuel line out, and they have strapped the fuel line to the brake line in a few places. Definitely don't like that. Well, we finally got our old fuel line out. They did not have it run the best route. It was kind of a pain trying to get it unfastened from the brake lines without breaking them. Now to put the new fuel line in. Here's the boy taking off the fan and the fan shroud, trying to get the front of the engine disassembled. And if FedEx ever shows up with our new front engine cover, we'll swap that out. And while he disassembles the front of the engine, I am going to go ahead and start trying to figure out our new fuel line routing. As Junior pulls our crankshaft pulley and we get ready to pull the harmonic balancer, I'm going to put a different harmonic balancer on. It has been suggested to me that some of the engine vibration I'm experiencing could be a bad balancer. Now, this is a used balancer. To my knowledge, the last time it was on a car, it worked just fine and balanced perfectly. But the same is true of that balancer down there. So, I don't know. We're going to simply put this new used harmonic balancer on I sort of kind of marked it from 0 to 40, and we'll see if it works any better. If it doesn't, nothing lost. Here's Junior using the harmonic balancer puller to take off our harmonic balancer. You having fun, Chris? He shook his head yes. Not sure he's telling the truth, but here's the harmonic balancer that came out of the car, and it looked really good when we put it in, but you can see the rubber ring is cracking everywhere. This definitely could have been our problem. Oh, that ring is definitely sticking out compared to this one. This one is nice and flush. Actually recessed a little on the back. This is number 2, the new one we're putting in. Now forgive this, that's a little bit of paint stuck on there, but yeah. Oh, this ring is coming out of this harmonic balancer. Hopefully this was our balancing issue. That would be super nice if that's all it was. If that's what it is, if it doesn't change anything, this balancer was going to go on my car, but I think I'm going to use it as a paperweight now. And either way, we're going to put this nicer looking one on and hope for the best. Chris has the water pump off, and he's getting the front timing cover off now. Sure would be nice if FedEx would bring our new timing cover so we could turn this project around and start putting it back together. That'd be awesome. Believe it or not, I do work on some things other than Mustangs occasionally. This is my daughter's Nissan. The cooling fan's burned out. I believe the thermostat is stuck. So I'm replacing thermostat, put new cooling fans in it. The new cooling fans on the Nissan are working, so that's a good thing. Looks like her car will be back in service. Fuel filter is mounted in its new home with a hose clamp. And of course, buddy, how do we attach things to metal?
With metal self-tappers.
Metal self-tappers, of course. That's how we do things, because we are real mechanics. We are not hacks at all. Timing cover is off. We are big sad because we broke, or I broke our one-piece oil pan timing chain, or our oil pan front seal gasket. I'm not sure what we're going to do about that. Not happy. We have the timing chain off, and now we just cannot get the dowel pin out of the cam. That pin has got to come out of the cam to replace with a longer one so we can put our cam eccentric, our fuel pump drive on the front. Not good. Well, FedEx finally showed up and brought us our package. Unfortunately, it is the wrong front timing cover. We got another fuel injected timing cover. We have 3 of them now. I'm going to send it back and hopefully get a carbureted timing cover this time. I don't know if that's my fault or the company's fault. I'll have to check the order. But we went ahead and pulled the valve covers off. We're pulling the spark plugs. Since we were having to play around with the cam and everything, we're going to bring it back up to top dead center and line everything back up. So Junior loosened all the rockers so we don't have any piston to valve issues while we're turning this thing over manually. But it's probably going to be another 4 or 5 days now till this is together, because even if I order this thing today, it won't ship till Monday, and it probably won't be here till Wednesday or Thursday. And I don't know when we're going to get to finish it. Good times. Along with everything else that's gone wrong, our new fuel pump eccentric does not appear to be capable of fitting on the front of our camshaft. I believe that little square peg is supposed to go in this hole. That is not going to happen. So I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do with that. Back here test fitting the fuel tank and the new fuel lines and stuff, and literal rat's nest up here in the frame. maybe a bird's nest. It's really hard to tell, but no, I think it's a rat's nest. This car did sit for a long time before we got it. Yeah, it's a rat nest. There isn't much going on with the car today. I have to work here in a few hours, so not doing a whole lot. But I woke up this morning to find that Stephen Holtz from Just Drive It dropped off a 289 front timing cover for the car. Obviously for a carburetor and a manual fuel pump. Don't think I'm actually going to use it because I did just order one. It should be here in a couple of days, so I don't want to use Stevens if I don't absolutely have to. But I do appreciate it. That's awesome. Also, I did find that it was completely my fault that I got the wrong front timing cover. I really thought I ordered the correct one, and LMR sent me the wrong one. I was wrong. That was all me. I clearly clicked on the wrong item number and ordered the wrong item. So that's all on me. The only real update today is that discovered that the dowel pin in front of the camshaft is too long. It is not going to work with the parts we have. It is also not going to come out. Not shown on camera yesterday were our 500 attempts to get that dowel pin out using vice grips, nor our 100 attempts to get it out using a torch. That cam and that dowel pin are mated forever till death do them part, which is where the grinder wheel of death comes in. I can't express how much I don't want to do this, but as the late great Charlie Robison would say, these are desperate times. And that dowel pin isn't coming out, so I've got to clearance it. I definitely did not have that on my 2023 bingo card, but as you can see, we now have a properly fitted fuel pump cam eccentric that goes on and will hopefully work. Now, of course, I've got to take this all back off so I can put the chain back on, but the clearancing and machining is done, and I use machining with air quotes, but it works. And speaking of machining, while we're on the topic, I love good quality machine work. And it's vitally important, especially to things like engines, but for the love of God and all that is holy, there is a fine line between quality machine work and making it where the tolerances are so tight that once you put something together, it never comes off again. It would have been nice if I could have just slid the pin out of that cam and gotten a short one and replaced it, but I spent hours trying to get that pin out of that camshaft, and it was not budging at all. It's pretty annoying. That goes beyond good quality machine work. The only other thing I'm doing today is I'm attempting to essentially super glue my one-piece oil pan gasket back into place with gasket seal, and hoping that works. I can't believe that thing broke. That sucks. And that's it for today. It is Monday. Chris Jr. is in school. I'm out here doing some little things that I can do while I wait on parts. I got the timing chain reinstalled, torqued down the cam with the cam eccentric. Hopefully our one-piece oil pan gasket is going to hold now that I basically glued it back together with ultra gray. And now I'm going to move on to doing some fuel line. Here we are underneath the car running the new fuel line. Not sure if I mentioned it before, but I did order some really nice braided steel fuel line, and it came in and it was the wrong size. Apparently I accidentally ordered 3/8 inch external diameter, so it was really small. I needed 3/8 internal diameter, so I sent that stuff back, and at the time I thought I was going to have the car back together that day or the next day. So instead of waiting a week turnaround for new fuel line, I just got a refund, ran down to my local hardware store and got some regular 3/8 fuel line. That was really, really cheap. And here we are attaching it to the floorboard and up under the frame rails with hose clamps. I know. That's not the proper way to do it. It's not the perfect way to do it, but it's not just good, it's good enough. And I will give you 5 internet cool guy points if you can tell me what fairly well-known YouTuber often says that. It's not good, it's good enough. And it's not me. If you say it's me, I'll consider you a kiss up, and then we'll be friends for life. Thank you if you think it's me. I did not come up with that. There are not a whole lot of options on a Fox body to run fuel line under here without either being on the hot stuff, the exhaust, or near a moving component, the suspension. It gets pretty tight and pretty narrow in here pretty quick. This is not fun. Instead of paying $70 for a filler neck fuel line return kit, I decided what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my return and I am going to drill a hole. I'm going to thread in one of these little 3/8 NPT to 3/8 barb fittings in the top and run my fuel return line there and put a little gasket seal around it and see how that works. Our fuel return fitting actually threaded in really, really well. I'm going to put a little bit of thread sealer around there, and then I'm actually going to put a big hose clamp on top of it just to pin it in place and make sure it doesn't go anywhere. I wish I could show you how it fits inside, but you can't really see it. I can't get it to show up on camera, but that turned out better than I thought it would.
Boo.
I have my fuel return line plumbed back here. I actually have my main fuel line, my tank, from my tank to the pump line, plumbed also, but I haven't cut it to length yet because I need to take the slack out of it when we actually mount the pump and get everything going. But I measured the fuel return, I mounted the fuel pressure regulator, and I got this all set back here. Now I need my front timing cover to carry on. I think that's about it for the day. It's Tuesday, new day, new problem. We're problem number 7,912 with this very basic beginner level fuel swap. Let's check it out. This is the 2-piece comp cams eccentric. So once I got the dowel pin clearanced, yeah, you might notice that this does not spin. This outer ring, it is supposed to spin. It turns out I have the wrong style timing chain. This is an EFI fuel injected timing chain cover, and it will not work with this 2-piece comp cams eccentric. So my options were to either get a $130 Ford Racing 1-piece eccentric that will bolt to this, or buy a new timing chain set for $60 that's made for this eccentric. And that's what I've done. I've just ordered a brand new timing chain kit. I believe it's a Chloe's whatever racing double roller timing chain kit, and it should be here in a few hours. So joy of joys, another problem solved with more money. Yay. My Chloe's timing chain just came in. I'm going to start getting it fitted to the car and hope it works. You can see the difference in the front hub here. The eccentric doesn't sit evenly here. The eccentric is cut out into this shape, which hangs down lower down here. So at least at the store, it seemed to fit all right when fitting it by hand. Let's see how it fits on the engine. All right, here's the Chloe's piece on, at least slid on. It did not want to go. It appears to be a very well-made piece, but it was tight. Very, very tight. Incredibly tight and hard to wrestle on there. One thing I don't like is they put like a C for center, and they use like emblems to represent the different timing angles I prefer Comp's version with A for advance, R for retard, and 0 for top dead center. I had to read the instructions and figure out how to line this up dot to dot. Now let's see if the camshaft or fuel pump eccentric is going to work. All right, well, it is on and it is working. Despite this entire assembly being twice as hard to get on as the last one, this is fully torqued down, and this is how it is supposed to work according to Comp Cams. So now maybe I can finally move on to finishing up the rest of the engine soon. Of course, in order to finish up the engine, I have to have my timing cover, and I just realized that I'm trusting Amazon to deliver that. Amazon is the company that still claims they delivered a package of mine 4 days ago that never arrived. Good times. All right, it's a new day. My timing cover has finally come in. I got the cheapest, most generic timing cover known to man. I got it on Amazon. I think it was like $60 or $62. If this whole thing works out, I'll post a picture of where I got it and all that. The very first thing I noticed when I got it was that the fuel pump does not mount up properly to the machined location for it. When you try to put it on, the fuel pump will not sit flush. As you can see here, this is how the fuel pump sits on here. The problem is the eccentric arm on the fuel pump hits the top of the housing before the bolt holes line up. You can see how far off the bolt holes are. Now, this is not how this is supposed to be, because if you hold it up to the 289 fuel pump cover that Stephen Holtz let me borrow, it fits perfectly flush, and there's plenty of room here. So the first thing I've got to do is go and machine on this. Now, I could just force it on here using bolts, but if I do that, then the arm of the fuel pump is going to be constantly under pressure. It's never going to throw all the way up, and it's never going to have its full range of motion. Also, when I woke up this morning, I realized I didn't have bolts to mount the fuel pump to the fuel pump cover, or the timing cover. So I went down to the local hardware store to make this easier on you if you're doing this. These are 3/8 coarse thread bolts. I personally chose 1 1/4 inches to make use of the entire thread. I think anything from like 3/4 to 2 inch will technically grip, but I wanted to use the entire amount of thread, so I got 1 1/4 inches. Anything longer than 1 1/4 inches, they're going to start sticking out past the end pretty far. The other thing I have to do is get this little bitty tiny tab that came with the cover and get it inside this hole. This hole here is the front dipstick tube. Now, I think I would actually enjoy the front dipstick more than the side dipstick that goes in between the headers, but I don't have an extra dipstick and I don't have a way to block off that one if I remove it, so I'm not going to use the old school front dipstick tube. But I've got to find a way to get this thing in there. It does not fit by hand, so I guess I'm going to have to get a punch and punch that in there. But I'll do that after I can make sure that the fuel pump is going to mount to this thing. All right, I've wasted a whole lot of time trying to grind the entire channel here for the fuel pump down, like I was porting ahead and trying to get better airflow. Complete waste of time. I finally realized that the fuel pump handle, eccentric, whatever, the pump rod, I can't remember what it's called, is only hitting right here in the very end on the inside. Now, I've already taken off probably over 1/4 inch. I mean, you can see where I started grinding. I started grinding up here. Like, this thing was thick and beefy. There was probably more than 1/2 inch of material up here that this rod hits. So I'm pretty much going to take this all the way down to this bolt hole to let the rod go freely. Unfortunately, I do not have the exact grinding stone for my Dremel that I would love to have, but it's going. I'm probably halfway there. All right, I finally have this thing where the fuel pump rod is sitting freely on its own. It's no longer encumbered at all. A couple of minutes ago, I had it to where it was touching, but not really hitting or under any pressure, but I decided to go ahead and clearance it all the way. As you can see, I've gone all the way down to that bolt hole, basically. Luckily, that's all it needed. I didn't really want to get into that bolt hole, that casting much. But you can see I had to remove quite a bit of material to get this thing to sit in here properly. Hopefully, if you get this timing cover, you've got a Dremel and the proper grindstone at home. Alright, here we are with it bolted up. The fuel pump now has room to move. It will go to its full range of motion, and it is actually not hitting under there. I just went and clearanced it just a tiny bit more. Now the fuel pump should have its entire range of motion. It is now loose and has a little bit of extra space. This was all the work of porting a chamber on a cylinder head with absolutely none of the horsepower results and none of the fun afterwards. 2 out of 10, would not recommend. Also, I can now say with pretty high degree of certainty, I'm probably going to have to clearance some of this for the fuel pump eccentric. I have a feeling when I put it together, it's going to hit. Hopefully not, but this rod in its natural state rides right against this. I may have to do a lot of clearancing on this thing. Hopefully there's as much beef front to back as there was in this casting. I got my oil dipstick tube plug put in. I just came in from underneath it with a punch and just gave it a little love tap in. I went ahead and it's pretty deep channel. It's probably 3 or 4 times thicker than this thing. I went ahead and just drove this all the way back up where the top where I can see it. I don't think it'll pop out, but I am going to backfill that hole with some silicone just to make sure it doesn't vibrate out. And if it does vibrate out, I'd rather it vibrate out the top than down in my engine. Here is the timing cover test fitted. It is beyond tight down in the bottom. Now this fits that tight without that bottom gasket. It broke off that broken bottom gasket piece down here, and I could barely get this thing on. I'd use some bolts to guide it onto the dowel pins because I could not get it by hand. I'm not sure what I'm going to do about bottom oil pan gasket because it actually broke that broken piece back off there. So I'm going to pull this back off, and I'm going to get the front main seal put in and go from there. Hey guys, did you know that before you can install a front timing cover and a water pump, gasket, and apply silicone and all that, you have to go through and clean all these off, clean all these mating surfaces? If you're watching this, you probably know that. My boy knows that. I should know that. But that's what happens when you're on day 6 of a 4 to 6 hour project and you're running low on time because you have other commitments coming up. But anyway, yeah, I just tried to reinstall all this stuff and put it all back together with gobs of silicone and old gasket everywhere. I meant to have the boy do that the other day, and we got busy doing other things. So yeah, good times. Story time that I hope will help people in the future. It's about this fuel pump eccentric here. So I'm part of a whole bunch of Facebook groups and car forums and stuff. And, you know, in theory, those groups and forums have thousands and thousands of hours of combined mechanical experience. But when I couldn't get this to spin, and it was a weekend and I couldn't get comp cams on the phone, I started asking Facebook groups and car forums, and man, almost without exception, everyone told me, no, this doesn't need to spin, it doesn't need to spin, everything's fine, just put it together, get your car running, let's go. I wasn't comfortable with that, so Monday morning I called comp cams, and they were very helpful. You could tell they thought I was kind of stupid for asking, but they were like, of course it has to spin. It's a 2-piece eccentric. That is basically a bearing. So that's why I had to go and get this timing chain. So, you know what? I know banker's hours suck and it's hard to reach people on the phone. No one feels that more than me. I work overnights. No one's ever open for me. But just wait. Take your time. Wait. Call the manufacturer. Get an actual answer from the people who know. Don't rely on strangers on the internet. It's going to screw up your engine. All right, story time's over. Back to work. For the love of God, this front timing cover is insanely tight going in here. So I had to crawl my ample frame up under the car and loosen the oil pan. Wouldn't be a huge deal if the boy was here. He'd do it a lot easier than me. I could do something while he's crawling under the car to do stuff, but it's not how it's working today. But finally got the oil pan a little bit loose. Maybe I can get this front timing cover on now. It seems to fit relatively well. Can't believe it, but with the oil pan loose, it went on rather drama-free. Now, I need to figure out my son's organizational system for all these bolts. He was supposed to do this, not me. It's fine. It's fine. Ooh, almost screwed up. Sitting here test fitting bolts. Tried to force a bolt into this new timing cover and realized, yeah, it's not exactly drilled very well. And it's crazy enough, these really high dollar ARP bolts get stripped out really easily by a cheap aluminum timing cover. Not the first time I've run into that, but I'm gonna have to tap every single one of these bolt holes. Good times. I just tapped these top 3 bolt holes and an absolute ton of material came out. The front and the back and all in the tapped threads. Unfortunately, I tried to put this in before I tapped it. Now I'm going to have to recut this because this soft, cheap aluminum ruined my really expensive ARP bolt. So don't do this. Make sure to tap all your new holes well in advance so this doesn't happen. I'll have to remember to get those later. Well, I recut this bolt, but it's crazy what this soft aluminum did. It took an entire thread off all the way around it just from putting it in here. Too quick and dry and without tapping the hole first. It goes in now. It threads fine, but that's insane what this cheap soft aluminum did to this expensive bolt. Kind of crazy. Lesson learned. I knew that lesson already. I'm just kind of slow. The good news is I did remember to tap the bottom of the timing chain cover before ruining my brand new ARP bolts. The bad news is I did not think to do this before installing the timing cover. So now I'm under the car, living the sad life. Be sure to tap all your bolt holes. It is insane how much material I got out of these bolt holes underneath the oil pan. Look at that. That is an insane amount of material off that brand new casting. That's what's destroying the bolts that I'm putting in there. There's just material everywhere. Super proud of myself. I actually remembered to come back through and put the oil pan back on. When I had to take it off to get the front timing cover on, I really thought I would probably be driving down the road in a couple of days and, you know, have smoke and flames everywhere and wondering where all this oil is coming from. And then remember, I didn't put the oil pan back on. But I did. Can't believe it. Sadly, one of my oil pan bolts disappeared. Don't know how, don't know why. I didn't take it anywhere. It was just right here. But it lives with Jesus now. It is gone. No clue where it went. Oh well. I had reason to believe that despite my best efforts, the broken piece of the front oil pan and timing cover gasket was not in place like I'd hoped it would be. Of course, the only cure for this is copious and liberal amounts of ultra gray gasket seal. I know, that's not how you're supposed to do it, but I would rather it look hideous than to have to go back in and reseal this thing in a couple of days. Harmonic balancer has been reinstalled. This is the balancer I've referred to as number 2 because it was intended for my engine. It has been promoted to number 1 now. I'm not sure why, but I don't know, it just doesn't look right. It doesn't seem like that's fully seated to me. Looks like there's a little bit of a space, but it is torqued all the way down. So I guess that's right. I guess we'll see if the pulley doesn't line up when I reassemble the engine. When you go to install the fuel pump, when the cam and piston number 1's at top dead center and the cam is rotated properly for install, the cam eccentric, or the fuel pump eccentric, is aimed down, so it's hitting the pump rod. So I'm going to rotate the engine over to the pump rod. Is a little easier to install. I'm not sure what's going on. I've tried to bump the engine over a couple of times now, and I am hearing a definite metal on metal knocking sound. I don't know what it is. It shouldn't be piston to valve. All the rockers are backed off and very loose. I don't know what it is, but it worries me a lot. Let's see if it happens again. There it is again. I don't know what that is, but it scares me. I pulled all the rockers and the push rod, spun it over a couple more times. It clacked a couple more times and now seems to have stopped. I'm glad it stopped knocking, but now I'm worried about what that was. That should not have been a valve event. Shouldn't have been possible. A little bit nervous now. I am so absolutely paranoid about that clacking sound that I heard a minute ago. I'm going through reinstalling the roller rockers one cylinder at a time and giving it a compression test. It's going to take more time than I have, but all right, that one's good. It's number 2 down, 6 to go. Cylinders 1 through 4 were rock solid. If I think a little low, I think they were like 125 each. Could have sworn they were higher than that, but they were all exactly the same. No clacking sound. I think I just figured it out. When I had the rockers really loose, I think it was the push rods not being in the cup in the back, and then while I was turning the engine over, they were popping up into the cup. That may have been the knocking sound, because I just had that happen a second ago when I was trying to tighten these. I didn't realize I didn't have the push rods seated properly in the back of the rocker. When I turned it over, it popped into place. I'm hoping that's all it was. I've noticed I've got some unusual wear patterns on the tops of these valves I don't like. Some of them are perfectly centered with almost no wear pattern at all. Look brand new, and a couple of them have wear patterns off center. Even though everything was measured, everything should be good to go. Some of them look good and some of them don't. I've been checking the roller tips. All the roller tips move freely, and that one's got some discoloration on it. That's weird. And it's wiping off. I guess it's just grease. I don't know. Strange. All right, the valve train is back together. Everything sounds good and looks good. No noises. All right, in the future, I think I'm just gonna take the entire valve train off anytime I do something like this, just to save myself the paranoia. The thought of damaging this engine before the boy can even drive it, drives me crazy. All right, I gotta move on and get this back together. And I've got the fuel pump mounted. So I looked up some torque specs for this fuel pump, and I found a bunch of different stuff on the internet. Take all of that with a grain of salt. Since I don't know exactly what the torque specs are for this timing cover and for this fuel pump and for these bolts, I'm pretty sure these bolts will take more than anything else will. I just decided to tighten it enough to crush the lock washers. Gave it 1 ugga-dugga instead of 10 ugga-duggas. If it leaks, I'll take it off and I'll put a little bit RTV on there or something, but hopefully that's going to hold. Before I go any further, I've got to know if this fuel pump works. So I've got my tank of gas down here with my in fuel line, and I got my out fuel line to this tank of gas, and hopefully when I bump this over, we'll be able to hear gas moving. Huh. Well, that didn't work. Nothing yet. That is not ideal. This is what I was afraid of. Nothing is happening. I have been trying for half an hour. The fuel pump just is not doing anything. I can't get it to draw in any fuel at all. I can't get it to prime. I can't get it to do a thing. If I put the hose, the outlet hose, I get air bubbles. So the outlet is pushing. The inlet is not pulling anything at all. It just does nothing. So called a buddy of mine. He says he thinks it's a bad diaphragm and I should take the fuel pump back. I can't do that tonight. I'll have to do that tomorrow. I don't know what's going on with the pump, but I don't know if this hole is supposed to be here on the side. When I put my finger over it, it makes suction. I mean, I guess I could fill it with a screw and some RTV or something, but I don't want to do that. I don't think that's supposed to be like that. That's where I'm losing all my vacuum. It blows air, but it doesn't have any suction. I'm not sure what's up with that. I'm just going to take it back, get another one. Unfortunately, that's it for today. I've got to change and go to work. And tomorrow I have a family thing. It's going to take all day. I won't get to touch the car tomorrow. Hopefully, I can get back and get some work done in 2 days. That would be day number 8 of this never-ending saga. Later. It's Friday. Again. Pretty sure we started last Friday. Even though I didn't touch this car yesterday, that would make this day 8 of the never-ending fuel pump saga. I didn't touch the car yesterday. I had a lot of family things to do. I did, however, do an emergency repair in my Dodge Durango. I may have said it before, I'll say it again. Friends don't let friends drive 4.7 liter overhead cam Dodge Durangos. Only negligent parents do. I'm a terrible father, I know. Anyway, I did manage to pick up the new fuel pump. I did go ahead and stick with the M60318BD. Some of you might notice this isn't technically for this Mustang, but the thing is, the pump that is for this Mustang has a fuel, has an air canister, a smog canister attachment, and I didn't really want to deal with blocking that off, so this was recommended to me by some knowledgeable people online, and hopefully it's going to work. First thing I'm going to do is try to get this thing to pull suction by sticking a tube and some gas before I try to hook it up. Alright, let's see if this thing works. Oh, hell yeah. Alright, this one has suction and vacuum right off the start. Pumped it 3 or 4 times by hand and it just fired right up. Awesome. The fuel pump is on the car now, and I'm feeling really stupid because I'm 99. Alright, I've almost killed this battery turning it over constantly trying to get this to work. I put the pump back on the car and initially didn't work. I didn't realize how vacuum sensitive this thing was. I really thought that if I was holding the outlet line up, thinking it was just going to pull fuel, and it wasn't working. And I tried repeatedly. I couldn't get it to work until I plugged off the vacuum. It does make me a little concerned how sensitive it is, whether this is going to work the first time the tank loses a little bit of vacuum and what's going to happen. But so watch. See, that's the little that was a little bit of fuel that was left in the line. But watch this. When you plug it up, it gets vacuum again. Let's see. There we go. Spraying a ton when you plug it off. Alright. Anyway, the pump does work. Very good odds the last one worked. And I just had a fundamental misunderstanding of how vacuum sensitive this entire system was. Alright, I got to move on and do other things now. done a couple of things off camera. Put the battery on the charger because I pretty much killed it, cranking it constantly. Put the valve covers back on, put the spark plugs back in. I haven't put the wires back on yet. I ran the fuel line from the fuel pump to the carburetor, clamped it down. I clamped down all the upper fuel lines. And now I'm going to put the water pump on, and then I'm going to start working my way back down. Or you know what? First I'm going to go ahead and run these fuel lines, finish running from the tank to the fuel pump, and get them strapped down before I move on to put the front of the engine on. I completely forgot I had to pull this wheel off to finish strapping down this fuel line over here. It may not be pretty, but there are very limited places to put fuel line where it's not either against the hot exhaust or hitting something that's moving. So I've got that tucked up there as close as I can. It should easily clearance the wheel, even at full rotation, full turn. But I will check it when we get the car together. Make sure we're not going to rip a fuel line off. If you're wondering how annoyed I am and ready to be done with this project and tired of it I am, I just spent about 10 minutes running around frantically and desperately looking for my 5th lug nut. You know, on my 4 lug nut Fox body. Yeah, this thing needs to come to an end. Alright, I've got the rest of the fuel system plumbed, front to back, cut to length, ready to go. Now I've just got to get the fuel pump back in. I should be able to get ready to test fire it. Alright, our gas tank is reinstalled. It doesn't look like anything's crimped. The vent tube's nice and loose. All the fuel lines up there are tucked in. They have some play in them. They're nice and loose. You can get up there and reach all the way up there and touch them and move them so they're not crimped. So now it's time to put the battery back in it, spin it over and pressure test it and hope. Alright, everything's buttoned up in the fuel system. The battery's reinstalled. Let's see if we can get any suction and make any pressure before I put the rest of this thing back together. Nope, not a drop of pressure. Not a drop is coming out of the fuel pump. This is what I was afraid of when I discovered earlier that I can't get any pressure from this thing unless there's complete vacuum. But my fuel return isn't a complete vacuum. The vent on the fuel tank isn't a complete zero vacuum. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. I took the feed line off the carburetor, put my thumb over it to try to create some vacuum and some suction. I'm still not getting anything. Nothing is going into the fuel pump, it seems. I'm not getting any suction out of the fuel tank at all. It has been a couple of hours. I have killed my battery again. My starter solenoid started smoking. I cannot get this thing to draw a single drop of gasoline from the pump or from the gas tank. If I just stick it in a gas can here, it'll work fine. I've gone through and double and triple checked all the lines for leaks and holes and just anything that could be going wrong. I don't get it. I've even tried with it hooked up to the pump. I've taken this line off and just held my thumb over it and it won't do anything. I can't get a single drop to come from the tank. I checked the fuel pickup is submerged. It's got plenty of gas. All the lines are secure. There shouldn't be any vacuum leaks. I'm pretty much at my wit's end. I don't know what to do at this point. I am so confused by this. This is the most simple, straightforward little swap, and I can't get it to pull any fuel from the gas tank. I'm pretty well defeated for the day. I think I'm going to pack it in, let the battery charge overnight. Probably going to need a new starter solenoid. I'm so confused, it's unreal. I don't get any of this. I can't get a single drop from the gas tank to the fuel pump. I decided I'd try one last thing. I'm trying to get the pump to pull fuel from this gas can right here to the pump, to the fuel regulator and the carburetor, and it won't even do that. The fuel line coming out of coming out of the pump is completely bone dry. I don't know what's going on. I can't get it to pull anything at all now. I'm so confused. Now I can't even get the pump to draw from this can, just right here. From one can to the next, I can't get it to do anything now. I am so confused. I'm going to take the pump off, see if it'll work again manually. I have no idea what is going on with this thing. I'm even more confused now. I took the pump off the car, stuck the hose in this gas can, stuck the other hose in that gas can, pumped it by hand, and I'm getting plenty of fuel flow. It's doing really well by hand. So I'm not sure what is going on. I'm going to try putting it back. I'm going to try putting the feed line from the car back on it and pump it by hand and see if I get anything. Well, I've had sort of a breakthrough. If I take the pump, I'm getting gas from the fuel tank. If I take the pump and I cover up the fuel outlet, it builds pretty good pressure. See, I've already got gas coming. See? Big squirt of gas. Just see that? Yep. Big squirt of gas. So the pump is capable of pulling gas from the tank. The moment I hook up the rest of the system, it stops working. I'm going to try hooking up the hose to the carburetor and see if I get fuel pressure by hand. I'm even more super confused now. So now I've got everything hooked up. When I hand pump it, I can actually hear gas coming through. The problem is, it is just spraying directly down the mouth of the carburetor. It's not building any fuel pressure. Oh yeah, it is. I've got 2 psi fuel pressure. So we're getting fuel pressure, we're getting fuel to the carb. I don't know if we're getting fuel to the return, but hand priming this has gotten us, the pump it fast enough, I get 3.5 psi fuel pressure. Maybe that's what it needed, is to be hand primed. I don't know. This is confusing. All right, hand pumping the fuel pump was flooding the carburetor. It was just dumping fuel everywhere, over pressurizing it. I only saw about 4 on the gauge, but apparently it was a lot higher than that. So I've backed out the fuel pressure regulator almost all the way, trying to keep it down to 2 or 3. I'm going to try to hand prime it again. I need to see if any gasoline is getting through the return back to the tank. All right, let's try this again. According to this, we're not building any pressure. It does sound like some gas is still going into the carburetor. This says we're not building any pressure. I hear it dumping somewhere. Still says 0 psi. Doesn't sound like it's dumping into the carburetor anymore. No, nothing happens when I hit the throttle. Oh yeah, it's got a little bit of fuel in it, but no pressure. Let's see if I can dial that up to 1 or 2 pounds, just so I can get a feel for this. All right, there we go. Yeah, we're getting up like 1.5 psi. That's good for a hand test run real quick. Now I'm going to try to bolt the fuel pump into the car and see if cranking it with the engine will get me some fuel pressure. That's something that hasn't happened yet. I'm starting to think something with this arm and this eccentric isn't working right. All right, put the fuel pump back on. Let's see if this thing will get any fuel pressure when it's hooked to the car. Yep, we're getting fuel pressure now. All right, good. Not very much. It is dying off pretty quick. Dial this A little heftier. Let's see if it'll build some pressure and hold some pressure. Going up to like 2 psi. That should be enough to fire it though. So that's a progress. That's an improvement. All right. Well, I rehooked up the coil. I put the plug wires back on. It's got fuel. Hopefully it's not completely flooded. And maybe it'll start, but I am going to stand back a little just in case there's a little fireball or something. Huh. Well, I didn't change the timing or anything, so I'm not sure why it's not firing. Let's try it again. That's annoying. But I've got fuel pressure. Not sure what's going on. Double check that there's a little bit of fuel in the carburetor. And there goes the starter solenoid again. Great. Not sure what's going on. We got fuel. We've got spark. Don't know what's happening. Great. Well, it turns out that we may not have spark after all. Not 100% sure why. All we did was disconnect things and lay them here and then reconnect them. Should have plenty of spark. We didn't touch anything spark related, but I'm not getting any spark. But now the battery and the starter solenoid are just too cooked to keep going. I can't even turn it over anymore, so I can't continue to test for spark. Look who finally came back from school, getting educated. Ugh. I put him to work. We've got the water pump on now. He put the crankshaft pulley back on. We're about to put the belt tensioner back on this kind of jacked up bracket. Just trying to do something to keep us busy since we can't get it to fire right now. I'm waiting on the battery to charge. Everything seems to be technically sound. The boy was back at the gas tank listening, and our fuel return is definitely returning fuel. But now it still won't fire, and we don't know why. That doesn't sound good. We figured out the spark issue. We believe we've got spark now, but something ain't right. We're pulling the spark plugs. We already pulled the passenger side 1 through 4. We're pulling 5 through 8 now. The plugs are pretty soaked in gas. I think it's having trouble firing because of the carburetor flooding from earlier when the fuel pressure regulator wasn't regulating properly. Confirming once again we have spark. Yep. Let's try this one more time. That doesn't sound healthy. Sounds like it's got a gallop, like something's wrong. I don't like that. Really not liking this sound. Oof. Not sure what's going on. We popped off the valve covers to see if there's anything going on with the valves. It sounds really weird trying to start. But we're just completely out of light. It is completely dark out here, so we got to go back to it tomorrow. We are back at it on day 9. I believe it's December 9th. We started on the 1st. I came back out this morning and readjusted the valves because I started thinking about it. It sounded like we're hanging a valve open. Let's see what it sounds like now when we turn it over. Sounds like a smoother turnover. So we're going to try to hook everything up and fire it up. Battery did not charge well overnight. So it's not wanting to turn very well, but we got the fuel hooked back up and let's see what happens. Back up, bud. We've got fuel. We've got spark. It's turning over healthier. Not firing. Not cool. Backing down the timing, give it a couple fuel pumps, and let's see. Come on, baby. Oh, blarg. Nope. All right, she's about dead. All right, with the battery hooked up to another car by jumper cables, it is idling. Fuel pressure is a little bit erratic with this pump, but it is running. All right, we're going to get set on trying to get this thing wrapped up and get the water and the electricity hooked back up to it, so hopefully we can run it full time. All right, we have everything all buttoned up. We're doing leak checks. Front timing cover and the water pump don't seem to be leaking. Ignore that smoke. I dumped a ton of oil everywhere. It's going to burn for a while. This is still a little odd to me that the fuel pressure is jumping like that. I know it's a cheap gauge, but the gauge has always been rock solid and steady. No fuel system leaks that I can find. I'm about to crawl under the car in the back half and make sure everything's buttoned up under there. It's idling fairly smooth, less shudder than it had. Thinking the harmonic balancer helped a bit. Still got just an ever so slight little shudder, but more acceptable than it was. Everything looks good under here. No drips, no leaks, everything's buttoned up. And we are spraying unburnt gas out the tailpipes. I'll have to adjust that here in a little while. Couple of things. It's running very smooth. It's not dieseling anymore when it goes to shut off. For some reason the thermostat is not opening. We are overheating. The radiator has not gone down any at all. I don't know why. I didn't touch the thermostat or the upper intake. All the same openings and paths through the front timing cover are the exact same as they were. I don't know what's going on. I went ahead, I took the top radiator hose off and I filled the top of the engine with the coolant that the system isn't cycling or draining. Trying to cool it down. The good news is we just had the cleanest warm start we've ever had. Just barely bumped the key and it fired right up. It was amazing. All right, I think we're ready to test drive it. Let's see if we can get another good, smooth, warm, quick fire. Not as smooth as it was earlier, but at least it started. All right, we're going to drive it. I almost forgot. We also got our new 5.0 Resto clutch and brake pedals. I needed to pad my order over $100, and we've been wanting some of these, so we got some of these, and they're pretty nice. Ready to go try our luck, buddy? Been a long 9 days, hasn't it? Now that we're moving, the temperature's under control. That's a good sign. Wasn't doing so hot at idle, but it's doing fine now. I guess the thermostat finally popped loose. Pay attention, people. for a test drive. Things are driving fairly well, but we've got a hard knock in the engine all of a sudden. I really think that's a rocker hitting. I don't think that's in the bottom half of the engine. I really think that's a roller rocker that I didn't adjust properly, I hope. You can sort of hear it down here, but it's not half as loud. The good news is we still don't have any leaks coming from the fuel system or the timing cover or the water pump or anything, which blows my mind. We always have leaks there. Well, it's just not a test drive for us if something doesn't go wrong. We're going to limp it home, but that knocking seems to have almost completely gone away now. I'm wondering if we just had a lifter or a rocker that wasn't getting oil flow and wasn't pumping up. I'm not hearing it now. Let's see what happens when we actually drive it. Well, we're not getting the ticking that we were. The ticking earlier was audible over the exhaust and everything, and it was getting faster as we revved up. Yeah, the ticking seems to have worked itself out. Hopefully it was just a lifter or a rocker not getting proper oil. Sudden that we've revved it up a little, that knocking is back. We're going to go home and check our oil levels and check that rocker and see why we're not getting oil to a cylinder. Because it's pretty obvious that we're not. I'm going to pull over and let it catch back up. We pulled over and shut it down for a minute. We're going to see if it gets better, if a little bit of the oil drains down. I'm thinking we got a lifter and a rocker not getting enough oil. So we're going to limp it home, go and check our oil levels and see what's going on with our oil delivery system all of a sudden. We pulled over for a couple of minutes, tried to let some oil drain down, but it's not helping anything. We've got a dead cylinder and a loud knock. I don't know if you can hear that. Hopefully that's just a rocker that's come loose and not anything in the lower half of the engine. This isn't good. I don't see anything obviously wrong here. I really thought we were going to have a rocker just completely loose and clacking around under here. I was really hoping it was in the top end of the engine here. I don't see anything wrong, so we're going to fire it up and see what happens. Start it up and let me look at the valve train. Make sure it's... Everything's getting oil. All these seem to be working correctly. Still sounds like it's a rocker though. Still sounds like it's right here. That doesn't look like it's working properly. Thank God it was just a rocker. It's the exhaust on number 3. It was just clacking like crazy. I know it looked like it was running kind of funny. I had to tighten up when I was actually running to get it set correctly. Anyway, I'm gonna see if I can quiet it down the rest of the way. Let's see how it goes. Oh, got a little bit of a vacuum leak over here, but all right, sounds much better. Let's see if we can do this again. Test drive, take 2. We're going to be burning oil off the header for a week. Such a huge mess trying to figure out what was wrong with those rockers, but I was panicked there for a minute. My scientific brain knows that that's a rocker sound, but the paranoia in my brain is telling me, no, you blew a rod, stupid. Oh my God, you can see all the smoke we're burning. Look at all that smoke. That's all the oil we're burning right now off the headers. Good time. times. We are smoke screening the neighborhood right now. So far so good. She sounds healthy and strong. Haven't really given it too many revs yet, knowing that the other roller rockers are probably going to pop loose also, since I adjusted them all exactly the same. Not sure if I mentioned it earlier, but number 3, the exhaust rocker, had backed out a lot. Number 4, the intake rocker, had backed out a lot. I adjusted everything exactly the same. Those two had almost come off. So thank God it was just a rocker. Much better. Junior, you think that's good enough? All right, we ready to take it home and call it a day before we destroy something else?
Yeah.
All right, you think I'll destroy something else if we don't go home?
Yeah.
You think I can destroy anything else between here and home? All right, guys, that's it. Thank you for watching. If you're still watching all of this after this much time for some reason, thank you. God bless. It was a 9-day odyssey. It was not fun. As you're going to see, mistakes, or as you saw already, mistakes were made. Rookie mistakes, easy mistakes. The wrong parts were ordered. The parts were used in the wrong way. Just stupid little things. But I am proud to report now that we have good quality fuel pressure at all times. I have a new fuel pump. It's delivering more pressure than we need. We're having to regulate it down. The regulator's working. It's running great. It's starting right up when we have a battery charged up. It's doing amazingly well. We are not having any dead spots. We're not losing any fuel. The return is working. You can pop the gas cap and hear the return. I had him do that earlier. Everything's going great. So hopefully this is another big step in making this daily driver ready, and that is the goal. We do have some time till he's driving it every day, but that is the goal here. Despite hot rodding it around all the time, it's not really a hot rod. We're trying to make a quick, fun, daily driving street car. So, have anything to add, buddy? Was fun had? Was it really? No. Yeah, what started on last Friday, and we were hoping to end by last Friday evening or Saturday. We're on the following Saturday. It's December 9th, but it was worth it. The car's running. Should crank up. It's so weird turning the key and not hearing the fuel pump, but it just fires right up. All right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.